I could invite you for a moment of centering, so we'll be all here present. If you feel comfortable, please gently close your eyes and withdraw your mind from all other places. Bring it to the place that you're sitting. And withdraw your mind from all other spaces and bring it to the space that your body is occupying. And withdraw your mind from all other times and bring it to this moment, to be here now. And as you keep the stream of the breath moving, gently open your eyes. On behalf of William Hibert's family, I would like to welcome you here in celebrating the celebrated life of Bill Hibert. My name is Mehrad Nazari, Bill Hibert's son-in-law and Michelle's husband. Mahatma Gandhi says, "Speak only if it improves upon the silence." Speak only if it improves upon the silence. And that is what Bill did, as long as I knew him. Every time he spoke, his words were measured, pleasant, and beneficial. He made the world a better place, not only by his words, but also with his musical words. Our world is a better place because of his presence and because of what he left behind. Most people knew Bill because he was an accomplished and respected musician. But those who were fortunate enough to know him, he was even more accomplished and respected human being. He lived an extraordinary, rich, and quality life with what he did. But also with what he didn't do, it was extraordinary. I never heard him say anything negative about anyone. I mean, anyone. If he didn't have something positive to say, he would remain silent. His word and his music represented his positive, disciplined, and joyful mind. He was my mentor and he was my role model. And at this point, I would like to invite the family members, the children, the grandchildren, and in-laws to share their tributes. But first, someone who really, really Bill loved. Every time she was coming into town, for weeks and days and weeks in advance, he was gleaming. Even every time I saw him with the sparkle in his eyes, Judy is coming in town. We are going to see this place, we're going to be in this restaurant. So, his beloved sister, Judy.
Thanks, Mirage. Oops. Olive, don't tie me. My sister Rosemary and my brother Dick, unfortunately, were unable to travel to come here. So what I have to say is for them too. Dick called me up the other day and said, "Include me in your talk." So I've included him. Olive, don't tie me. So, a lot of what you hear me say today is what I wrote in my journal the day after Bill died. And I thought I was going to get through this without a lot of emotion, so I hope I can do that. So here's what I wrote. Yesterday on Father's Day, my brother walked into the arms of the Father of us all. It was also the feast of Corpus Christi, a day when Catholic Christians celebrate the body and blood of Christ. Today, on this day, we celebrate the Feast of the Transfiguration. And today's feast is a feast of light. And on this day, the church remembers the time when Jesus was transfigured before 3 of his disciples, when his face shone like the sun and his clothes became radiant as light. And if you want to know more, you have to ask a Catholic priest. Personally, I'm not so sure that Jesus really changed. But I do imagine that those 3 disciples were given a glimpse of who Jesus really was. And I think that Bill is now enjoying that vision as well. I don't think it was any accident that his departure from this earth and the celebration of his earthly life was sandwiched in between these 2 feasts. I imagine that Lisa was the first on the welcoming committee who handed her dad a new piccolo and a new flute. And our parents and 2 of our brothers were not far behind. When I think of the legacy that Bill left behind, I think of the hospitality of both Bill and Olive. Shortly after you walked through their door, you were greeted with, "Would you like a glass of wine?" from Bill. And Olive, "Come and eat, you're not eating enough." She always had homemade soup and bread, not homemade. So bread and wine, get it? And it was celebrating the Feast of Corpus Christi without even thinking about it. I also think about Bill's unwavering devotion to his family and of his enjoyment of a good time. Those gatherings for Sunday dinner on 28th Street. The celebrations in this very party room. And the big blowout on Lincoln Boulevard for Bill and Olive's 50th. And I can still hear the easy laughter in those unending tales of life with the Cleveland Orchestra. He told so many stories, and I'll just tell you my favorite. He told of a time when he was playing at Blossom Center in Cleveland, when the silence that followed the end of a quiet, slow movement of Mahler's Second Symphony, a lone whippoorwill sang in the same key that the music had just ended on. He would notice something like that. Bill was in the big leagues professionally, but there was also a stillness inside of him so that he could notice those quiet little things. The progress of his tomatoes, the flowers of his garden, the song of a bird. He didn't say a lot, but he was a magnet for anyone interested in being surprised by the depth of his wisdom or his plain common sense, as Murad spoke about. This is the good part. He still lives on in the characteristics that his kids have taken on. And I'm not naming any names, but if you notice, you'll find gadgeteers. You'll see quick wit and easy laughter, problem solvers, helpers, organizers, mentors. You'll find compassion and the ability to tell a good story. Not to mention the gift of music to so many. You'll even find a wine connoisseur and an ability to treat others with respect and dignity. Bill always spoke to me with great pride in each one of you and about his grandkids. I miss Bill. He wasn't just a brother to me, he was my friend. And I thank God for the gift of his faith, for the gift of my faith that convinces me that his life is not over. It's just that his fragile body could no longer contain that vibrant spirit. But he is still spreading cheer in Southern California through his kids. And just listen to that message on his answering machine. Isn't that a great message? So to close, I'd like to read a paragraph. You can stop timing me now, Olive. Written by Dietrich Bonhoeffer, for all the people on whom Bill has had a great influence. His family, his friends, his students, and beyond. gap when we are away from those we love. And it would be wrong to try to find anything. We must simply hold out and win through. That sounds hard at first, but it's a great consolation, since leaving the gap unfilled preserves the bonds between us. It's nonsense to say that God fills the gap. God doesn't fill it, but keeps it empty, so that our communion with another may be kept alive, even at the cost of great pain. Amen.
My father would take us camping, caring for a fruit tree, and enjoy listening to a masterpiece of Beethoven and Mozart. It is because of my father that I could appreciate these as well. Thank you.
Okay, so we stand on the shoulders of those who have gone before us. In the Native American tradition, in introducing themselves, they first introduce their ancestors, then the land that they're from, and then finally their name that they're called. So, I am the daughter of William James Hebert and Olive Carter Boucher. I come from the land of the lakes, and my name, I am called Michelle. I'd like to share with you a few of my father's favorite phrases that he continuously said throughout the years. The first one is moderation in everything, including moderation. I really liked that one because it gave me a lot of leeway. Okay, from his Spanish immersion came the phrase, the greatest invention of mankind, the second greatest invention of mankind is the siesta. And when it came to siestas, he made JFK look like an amateur. He could nap on a dime. When I was about 8 or 9 years old, I had this sort of friendship book. And many of you may know what I'm talking about, but you had this little book and you had your friends sign something to you. And so I asked my dad if he would sign my friendship book. And he took the book, and then he gave it back to me. And I looked at it, and he had done a line drawing of someone in a canoe with a paddle. And underneath it, he had written, let's see, love many, trust few, always paddle your own canoe. Love many, trust few, always paddle your own canoe. And he definitely paddled his own canoe. And his 7 kids also paddled their individual canoes. I still think about that one. I still mull that one over. One time in San Francisco, a friend of mine was playing a concert. He was a concert pianist, and he was playing at one of the universities my dad came to. And afterwards, he was very quiet. So I said to him, "What did you think, Dad?" And first of all, the performance was technically perfect. It was very dramatic. And so I saw that he was very quiet. He didn't say anything. I said, what did you think, Dad? And he said, a great musician plays as softly as he plays loudly. Oh. Which, when you think about it, it's a metaphor for life. And, of course, the women in his family, one of our favorites, Lisa, me, and my mom, was come here and give me a smooch. So he was the son of Leonard Lewis Hebert and Margaret Barbara Melrose. He came from the eastern land where the river runs into the harbor. His name is William, and we stand on his broad and steady shoulders.
So I want to plagiarize something my brother John said right as he came into the room right after my father passed away, which was, he's on a different frequency now. And knowing my dad, that frequency is several octaves higher than his. But I was going through his desk, which all of the kids know. Well, when I was young, this desk looked monstrous, but now it comes up here on me, and he kept all his important papers in there. Passports, canceled checks for the last 30 years, the odd gold coin, you know. Anyway, so I was going through it, and I found this. It's a Dear Abby from November 29th, 1991. And it was folded carefully and tucked into one of those little secret drawers. So I knew it meant something to him. And then I read it, and it was basically about Cary Grant, who in his later life would go around and give talks, and at the end of every talk he would quote this meditation. So I'm not going to read the whole thing, but I'll read just the meditation because I think this is why my dad kept it. Now, Lord, you've known me a long time. You know me better than I know myself. You know that each day I am growing older, and someday may even be very old. So meanwhile, please keep me from the habit of thinking I must say something on every subject and on every occasion. Release me from trying to straighten out everyone's affairs. Make me thoughtful, but not moody, helpful, but not overbearing. I have a certain amount of knowledge to share. Still, it would be very nice to have a few friends who, at the end, recognized and forgave the knowledge that I lacked. Keep my tongue free from the recital of endless details. Seal my lips on my aches and pains. They increase daily, and the need to speak of them becomes almost a compulsion. I ask for grace enough to listen to the retelling of others' afflictions and to be helped to endure them with patience. I would like to have improved memory, but I'll settle for growing humility and an ability to capitulate when my memory clashes with that of others. Teach me the glorious lesson that on some occasions I may be mistaken. Keep me reasonably kind. I've never aspired to be a saint. Saints must be rather difficult to deal with. Yet on the other hand, an embittered old person is a constant burden. Please give me the ability to see good in unlikely places and talents in unexpected people. And give me the grace to tell them so, dear Lord.
I'll grab the other one just in case. I do it when I'm going to segue to something else here.
Hello, thank you for all coming. My name's Malcolm. I'm the number 3 sibling. And there's a couple things my father wanted me to remind everybody at his service. He mentioned it to all the boys, but I'm the first one to mention it. Somebody else doesn't. He said, remind everybody that you were taught how to make bread, his bread. And that comes courtesy of John, because John's the one that taught me. So I have right behind Harvey on the table there 25 copies of how to make Bill Hebert's bread. It's a picture on one side and then text on the back side. The text I published in a food recipe book from my employer one year in the 90s. And so that, if y'all want to know how to do it, I didn't put my phone number if you have any questions. So you can call me and I'll talk you through it. If you were here on Bill's 90th, then we might have even had a chance to eat some because I made it for him for his birthday. That's the last time I made it, but maybe not the last time. So let's see. So the other thing, a couple things, particular of memory was camping. To me, that's something that sank in pretty well, and I've always had a good time with it. And I still like to think I camp today. I have all the tools, but don't often. But as late as last year, I went out to the desert and camped out there, so I guess I still camp. And the other thing that he taught me was that tomatoes don't come from the grocery store. That was good. So another memory I have was, and this will only take another half hour for me. Just sit back and relax. The other memory was I would hear him playing in the basement. He would be playing the piccolo, and at times, he was always going on. So I would go over to the stairs and just go down like 3 or 4 stairs and just sit there. And I couldn't see him; he was on the side there. But I was just sitting there listening. And then eventually he'd figure out I was there, and then he would start playing the Flight of the Bumblebee. Sneak around the corner and play for me. That was fun. And then the last thought I have is the thought where if you're going to do something, then you may as well do it well. That's what I got from my father.
Not only Bill was a devoted family man, he also had a loving musical family. And you'll be hearing from some of the members of that family later on. And one of those who could not be here, Kate Steinbeck, sent this piece as the point of her admiration and love for Bill.
So the piece is called Black Mountain Farewell, and it's off a CD that she gave me. And it's a short 2-minute piece, but she thought it was her favorite one on that CD, so she wanted to have it played. So here we go.
Technical difficulties.